This might be one of the biggest pieces of junk I've ever picked up, and I think I paid too much for it. So this is a 2014 Polaris RZR800, and as you can see, it's in pretty rough condition. So the seller stated that he bought this from a young kid who blew it up and then let it sit in the field for a couple of years. I guess everything was rusted on it, plastics were broken, wiring was off of it. He said the wiring was all cobbled together. So he brought it back home. He actually rebuilt the whole engine, he said, with all Polaris parts. He bought a brand new wiring harness for it, new crank, new pistons, new cylinder, new stator, new CDI. He said everything pretty much brand new. Got it all back together and it still wouldn't run right. So he kind of gave up on it. He says it's going to need a lot more work, and he was just sick of looking at it. So he had this listed for $3,000 on Facebook. I went there and I'm like, there's no way I'm paying $3,000 for this piece of junk. Plastics are all painted. The seller said he sanded down the plastics and painted those. He didn't like the blue color. Seats are missing. They're in the back of the truck there, but they don't bolt on. He bought the wrong wiring harness for it, so the power steering doesn't work. Everything's kind of cobbled together. The clutch is squeaking like crazy. It barely runs. I mean, it is rough. He said the main problem that they were having is that little screw here, that weep screw by the water pump, he said it's just squirting out coolant and oil. So he said he never even got a chance to ride it. And he said he doesn't know the condition of the transmission either. So I was like, well, I'll give you $2,000. I'll take the gamble on it, and I'll take this thing and haul it away today if you take two. He said that's a pretty good offer. Take it away. I kind of instantly regretted it when we were pushing it onto the trailer, but here it is. We can't turn back now, and we've got this piece of junk in my driveway. So let's try to fix it up. I think the first thing we're going to do is hook up a jumper to it, see what happens here, see what it sounds like on the trailer, and kind of go from there. Wait until you guys hear what the engine sounds like. It's pretty interesting. So battery is hooked up. Let's see if anything happens when we turn the key on. Nothing. Nothing at all. So battery must be completely dead. We've got the jumper pack here. But before we do that, let's quick check the oil. I kind of want to see if the oil's milky, because they said it was spurting out coolant and oil from that weep hole by the water pump. Typically that would be a bad seal, which would mean coolant is entering the engine. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, it's milky. She's really milky. So, coolant is definitely mixing with the oil. That's not good. Alright, let's see if she fires up. Get the jumper hooked up. That does not sound good. You guys hear that? It fires right up. Fuel pump's working. You can see it squirting out of there. Yeah, something doesn't sound right. They said there's a brand new clutch on here too. Oh man, does that sound bad? They said they think that the brand new belt is squealing because it's still tight on there. I don't know, that sounds like there's something wrong with it, but you never know. We'll have to take off that cover and check out that belt. But we can probably cap that off over here where it's leaking coolant. You can see it spraying out of here. Pretty good. So what we're gonna do is take a hose and cap that off so we can actually drive this thing off the trailer, or attempt to. I don't know if it's gonna drive or not, but we're gonna go in reverse and hopefully back it off the trailer and then ride it right into the garage. I don't know if it's gonna be possible, but we'll see. I don't want to drive it too long with the coolant being in the oil. It's not getting proper lubrication. But let's check and see if the lights and stuff are working here. So you turn this on. It looks like high does work, but when you shift it, it seems like you get the dotted line here. So it's not showing up every gear, which I don't like. There's reverse right there, and it's flashing. So I don't know if there's low, if the shifter needs to be adjusted, or if the sensor's bad there. We're gonna try to get it in reverse here right away. Yeah, I'm not seeing it pop up here. Well, let's see if the lights work. It says the brights are on right now. Yeah, those are working. Alright. It's got blinkers. Yeah, that's missing the bulb. That's just flopping there. So that's not gonna work. Let's try the other blinker. Oh, that whole thing just fell off. Awesome. Jeez. What the heck? Horn? Horn and hazards don't work. Is anything hooked up right? Oh man. It's not looking good. What's this thing do up here? I don't know what that does. We'll keep that off for now. So yeah, it's gonna be a project. Try to go in reverse and forward with it. Alright, we got this thing in the garage. We put that little thing on there so no oil or coolant can come out of that weep hole there. But there's obviously something wrong with the water pump or the oil pump. I'm guessing the shaft is all pitted up and that seal is not sealing the shaft properly. So I think that means the whole engine probably has to come out. We're gonna do a couple tests on the engine and see what's going on. I kind of want to take off the clutch cover and see what that squealing noise is too. It just sounds really, really bad. So now that we're inside, I'm gonna start it up again so you guys can hear what it sounds like. See what you guys think. Here we go. Starting it again. Yeah, I don't like that sound. The radiator's right here. I kind of want to see if the head gasket's blown as well. So if the head gasket's blown, you'll see a ton of coolant just spurting out as you try to start this thing. Oh boy. Yeah, you can see it's really full. So as you crank this thing, it'll just spurt out of there. Because what's happening if the head gasket's blown is air is getting by and compression shooting out the radiator. And then that pressure builds up and it just poof, shoots everywhere. Same as a car. So let's see, I don't want this going over my camera if it does. Alright, we're just going to try to start it up and see what happens. It should stay level like that. Alright, so it doesn't look like it's a head gasket. Otherwise you'd see that shooting everywhere. So that's good. We're not dealing with a head gasket issue. Get this cap back on. I don't know if this thing is bled correctly though. That coolant should not be coming back up like that because it's not hot at all. So I'm guessing they didn't do the bleeding procedure correct on this. Alright, we're going to start by taking this clutch cover off. I want to hear what that sound is. Cover can come off now. Oh, there's one more. The cover's coming off. Oh, it does look brand new. Well, I don't think they were lying about that. It looks like a brand new clutch. Let's get the cover off the rest of the way. Hopefully we can. Alright, let's take a peek. Yeah, it definitely looks like a brand new belt on there. Yeah, those are brand new. Mother clutcher on there. Yeah, that's a nice clutch. That's a really nice clutch. So maybe it is just squealing from being new. Well, we're gonna start it up and see what that sounds like, but yeah, brand new clutch. All right, we just looked it up online on eBay. These kits, these clutch kits go for like $550 for the primary and the secondary along with the belt. So it doesn't appear to be wobbling or anything. It really doesn't look too bad. Everything's working, the clutch is going in when you do the throttle. So overall, I mean, it's a brand new clutch. We shouldn't have any issues with it. I do see some plastic getting ripped up right here. Oh, that's interesting. That's actually scraping on that cover. Maybe that's the sound we're hearing. See that? Back there. It's scraping. So is that cover not seated all the way on here? Yeah, that's definitely the sound we're hearing. Yeah, it's like rubbing into that cover. See that? That's not good. So we might take out the clutches and see why that's rubbing. Alright, let's try this again. We can't really fit an impact in there. We put this bar here. Alright, I just took our puller. Now we couldn't fit it in there, but that's the correct puller. And I just put a little force in the back of that and it just popped right off of there. So it was barely held on. Let's see what's going on. Get this belt off of here. Alright. Yeah. You can see that's not seated at all. It was rubbing really bad here. See, you're missing the bolt there. And the other ones don't look like they're seated at all in there. See how much play is in there? So that's why that was rubbing. Alright, that is stripped out in there. So we're gonna have to re-tack that. That's why they didn't put the bolt back in. So we definitely need that, otherwise that cover is gonna rub and make that sound. It's all tapped in there. That should be fixed. All right, new bolt is in place. Let's just fit up the clutch and see if it rotates smoothly on there. Oh yeah, I think that's gonna work. Longer rubs anywhere. So we'll see what happens when we tighten down that bolt for the clutch. But yeah, you can see it used to be rubbing right there. It's not rubbing anymore. All right, let's see what happens here. Hopefully that noise is gone. That sounds a little better, huh? That sounds much better. So what we're gonna do is put the belt back on and see if it still sounds good. If not, then there's something going on with the transmission. All right, belt is back on. Let's see what happens here. Give it a little throttle. Yeah, that noise is gone. All right, well, we fixed that problem. All right, so we have coolant mixing with oil, and it's most likely gonna be that water pump seal right down here. It's underneath this cover here, and underneath the impeller behind here. We checked that it wasn't the head gasket when we took the radiator cap off, so I don't think it is a head gasket. So the only other way water can enter the oil is through that water pump seal. So now we can see it's right in here. This is where it was spurting from. And it was just spraying. You can see some coolant. It looks like some oil there too. That was coming out of there. That doesn't look too good. Yeah, it's already leaking out. Hoping it's just something simple. All right, we let that coolant drain out a little bit. Let's see what we're working with underneath here. All right, cover looks good. Impeller looks to be on there pretty tight. that's all correct. Impeller looks pretty good. Got that little washer piece. That's correct too, so the rubber piece faces out. Oh, you can see some oil behind there. Then you've got your seal here. Just take that out quick. Alright, we can just rip out this seal here. Let's go behind here and tear that away. In order to get that out, we gotta get this piece out first. So just kind of rip that away from the base of that. There we go. So now, zoom in there. So this whole piece, see the little lip right there? That whole thing presses onto that shaft. And if that shaft is really corroded, it won't seal properly. So what you have to do is get that out of there. That little lip, you have to peel that back and pry that out. So we're just prying the inner seal part. Oh, there we go, popped out. That's what that looks like. Almost looks like that was new. Alright. Now we're looking at the shaft. That looks pretty darn clean. That's really nice and smooth in there. Now that inner seal is the oil seal. So that has to be bad too if we're getting coolant in the oil. But you can see the little hole right down here. You guys look down there, see the little hole down there? That goes directly to that. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. There's a little passageway. So if coolant gets behind the mechanical seal first, it'll start flowing out that hole, and that tells you to change that. But if you're seeing coolant in your engine, that means it got past the oil seal right there. The shaft doesn't look too bad, it doesn't look all pitted. So maybe it's just bad seals, you know, from sitting so long. Alright, so to see if this seal is bad, we're going to start this thing up for a brief second and just see if oil starts coming out of that seal. Because that seal is the only thing keeping coolant out of the oil. Look at all the oil coming out. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So that seal is completely shot in there. That's all oil coming out of there. So that would be the problem. So you can see it's all milky in there. All milky oil coming right from that seal. So we're going to try to get that seal out of there. And we'll see if we can replace that. An easy way to get these small seals out is to just drill a drywall screw in there and then you can just pry that out. Usually that works. Sometimes you have to use a little bit more force, but okay. That came right out. So that seal is the one that failed. not good. Alright, so looking in here, you can see there's a little drilled out spot right there. It looks like somebody attempted to drill into the seal at one point, but that doesn't go all the way through or anything. But there is that. And then there's a couple scratches on the surface there, but nothing on the actual shaft. So the actual shaft looks pretty good. So what we're gonna do is throw a new seal in there. We have 2 attempts at this because I have 2 brand new seals. So here's the first one. And we're going to apply a very, very thin amount of gasket maker on the outside of the seal. So when that seats in there, it will completely seal it off in case the little burrs right there, you can kind of see the, looks like somebody had a screwdriver in there at one point, in case those are causing it to leak through. And there's no way of fixing that unless you get a brand new case half here, or cover half. So let's just attempt to fix that. If not, whole engine's coming out. All right, we packed the inside full of grease. That's the part that goes on the shaft. And on the outside, we're gonna put just a very, very thin amount of gasket maker, just in case there's a small imperfection in that case, which there might not be. So we're just gonna do that all the way around and press that in. All right, new seal is in. Just use a socket and a hammer, and that went right in. So you can see the grease is around the shaft. That looks good. And then the very thin amount of gasket maker on the outside of the seal. So we're gonna let that dry for probably a day. Come back and start this thing up and see if oil pours out of it. If oil pours out of it still, we know that shaft is bad, because we know that oil would be coming from the outside of the seal because of the gasket maker. So it'd have to be coming from the inside of the seal where it seals to that shaft. So that would mean that that shaft has imperfections in it. All right, it's the next morning. We let that seal dry for probably 14 hours. So let's see if it's still puking out oil. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. So far, so good. Keep it holds here. Ah, darn it. Not holding. Oh, man. Looks like engine's coming out. That sucks. Well, that's a big bummer. I think that shaft is beyond repair. We're gonna kind of see where it's coming out of. I think it's coming from the inside by the shaft. But let's start it back up and just see where it pulls out from. Is it from the outside of the seal? It shouldn't be, because we have gasket maker on there and it was a nice tight fit. Or is it from the inside of the shaft? Yeah, it looks like it's pulling out from the bottom of that shaft. So right down in here. So every time that rotates over, it must not be straight or something. And it's just squirting out oil everywhere. So unfortunately, to get that replaced, this whole cover has to come off here. So you can see it's bolted on right here on the side here. So that means the whole engine has to come out, I believe, because I don't think you can take that cover off. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Is there a shaft that goes through to the differential too? Oh, what a pain in the butt. That sucks. Looks like it's running good. We just have to fix that one problem. Unfortunately, the only way to do it is to get the whole engine out, so this just turned into a big job. Piece is pretty light. Whole air filter over here. It's all zip tied on. Brand new air filter. Looks nice. Alright, we're gonna try to get everything off the engine here. So, air filter housing coming out. So the sellers did a good job putting everything back where it was supposed to be. It lines up. Through here. Let's see. Cut something right. Now we can just start disconnecting everything from the engine here. So all these wires, is this labeled? I think we're probably going to label these right and left. I don't see them labeled at all. Well, we're about 30 minutes in, and you can see how much I got torn out here. Gas tank had to come out to get the clutch off. We got the secondary clutch off, the cover off. I'm thinking we can possibly get this engine out without taking the transmission out, possibly. Right now it's connected to the transmission with a couple bolts. I'm wondering if we can get to the bolts to take off the engine from the transmission. So there's a plate here, 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts there, holding that on. And then let's see, is there another bolt down here somewhere? This is a mess. Can't tell if there's another bolt down there or not. I think there is, holding that on. So If we can get those, that would make our life a lot easier. Then we wouldn't have to mess with getting out the shaft or anything like that. So I think if we take off the pipe, take off the engine mount here, we can possibly get this engine out. Hopefully we can. They look brand new. Usually these are rusted in pretty bad. So I'm happy these are coming out pretty easily. Whole pipe can come off. Alright. And that was in there like that. Except new gaskets and everything. Alright, coming underneath here, you can see the two bolts right there holding on the transmission. So let's get those two off. And then we'll get the ones up top and then the engine mount. All right, we got the bolts from down below attached to the transmission. Let's get these four out. I don't know if I can get to that bottom one. Yeah, those are gonna be too small to get in there. It would be worth it. All right, this is called the wrench trick to get leverage. Okay, that's working. There we go. One more. Free. Get that out. There we go. Actually pound that out with a punch. And you can see the engine drop. Alright, here's the bolt. Now we have to get her punch out. I think if we lift up the engine just a little bit, we can... There we go, there we go. I think this whole pieces that come out of there, this whole thing, so we can lift the engine right out. I think it does. Holding on the pipe here. It's definitely moving. Is it held on by anything else? Alright, let's go underneath the engine. I'll show you guys where the drain bolt is. So right there is the drain bolt. Let's see how milky that oil is. Ooh. Uh-oh. I just heard metal. Hopefully that was like the washer, the crush washer on the bolt. Hopefully that wasn't a big chunk that fell out. But yeah, you can see how milky that oil is coming out. Here's the oil that came out. Let's take a magnet and go through it. Nothing on the magnet. No big chunks broke off in there. That's good. So it's just really milky. All right, we've still got this thing on a jack here, just because it's gonna be easier if that wheel is off over here to get this engine out. So hopefully it doesn't come off the jack. All right, we're just gonna slowly lift it up and hopefully she pops out of here. Let's see. Here we go. Again, we're gonna try not to lose it here. Just gonna kind of wobble it back and forth. Try to free that up. Pulled something out. Felt like a wire broke. Nope, we're good. Just pulled out. The seller told me he got this engine out by hand. That would have been brutal. Holy cow. You would have had to lift that all the way up to here and then probably stand on the frame here and get leverage to lift it up. That kind of sounds like a hernia waiting to happen. So at least we had the hoist here. That would have been pretty hard. So engine is out completely. You can see where it mounted to right down there. And then these bolts, where are they? They're on this side. These guys, these studs, go right into the transmission holes here. But I'm not seeing any fluid leaking out of the engine on the bottom half. That all looks good, so it was nice and tight. It looks like they did a pretty good job of rebuilding it. You can see all the new gaskets there. New cylinder. All right, engine's on the bench. Let's see what's going on with this shaft. We can see a little bit better now. Yeah, it looks pretty worn, doesn't it? There's some light surface rust, maybe a little pitting. So we'll take a look once we get in there and replace the whole thing. Here is the new part that we're going to be replacing it with. So that's the oil pump. And the oil pump actually has the shaft directly on it. So you have to buy the whole oil pump to replace the shaft for the water pump. So it's all one unit. Stripped out. Grab a vice grips and hopefully get the crank out of here. There we go. Bolt. This whole cover can come off. Washer. So here's the puller going on. Alright, that looks pretty good. Flywheel is officially off. They weren't kidding, that is a brand new stator on there. Should come right off of here. Looks like a brand new seal in there. That was a new seal, you could see. I had to have been sealing from the outside. Must be the inside that's not sealing on this shaft. So that all looks good. Alright, all the gears look good. I'm really not seeing any imperfections here. Let's rotate this over and see if the dots line up. There's a dot right here. That should line up with the dots here. Go the other way. Broke that off of there. Let me take the plugs out here quick. Pretty black. New plugs though. Looks like it's running pretty rich. There we go. Yep, okay. You can see on here, the dot lines up with the dot there. You guys can see that. So there's a dot there and a dot there. So those both line up too. That off there. Washer on there. This should pull right out of here. Oh, there's a little gear on there too. There's a second one. Third one. Fourth one. Alright, now I believe we should be able to pull that out. Alright, we were able to get the oil pump out without taking that gear off somehow, some way. Alright, then these guys came off. And here. There. Alright, take a closer look at the oil pump here. You can see there's a couple bigger gouges there where that seal sat. See that? A couple big scratches there. And there's one right there as well, pretty big. A couple minor ones there. I can still get my nail in them though. And a couple bigger scratches there. And then for comparison, this is the new one. So you guys can see how smooth that one is. So that's what it's supposed to look like. So this one's perfect. Alright, the new one comes in a kit like this. You've got the oil seal here, brand new. You've got the mechanical seal and this little washer with the rubber on it. You've got the oil pump, the impeller with the nut, and then you've got the new gasket. And then the seller included this as well. This is a new water pump cover. The old one was right here, so may as well use it since we've got a brand new one. All right, time to get the new pump in. So inside the pump that rides the shaft is going to be this star. This will go in like that, and you can see the dots on the outside. That's a reference mark. And there's another dot here. It's another reference mark. Both dots need to be facing out like that. Now, you can turn the shaft until this finds a spot to sit where it can fit in here. And that's how that goes, like that. We're gonna put a little oil on there. Just spin that. So this part that's thicker goes up, just like that. So this has to ride right in there like that. You want to be able to get in there. So right there. Now we're going to put some Loctite on these bolts and get these bolts through these holes. Alright, so this gear is tension with springs on the inside. So what happens when you take this off is this outer plate wants to move. So in order to get it to spring back, I had to put this bolt in here and line up these two holes. So now that that's lined up, we can get our bolt in. So here's the bolt, here's the washer. You're gonna put that in and tighten that down. Alright, so now we can take this bolt out and see how everything lines up nice. So now when you rotate that over, everything moves the way it should. Alright, first thing going in is the mechanical seal. You can see there's like blue Loctite tape here. That's going to face down. And then you want to pound on the little lip that's right here. So I've got this pipe that fits over this perfectly and sits right on that lip. So we're going to put this in here. Put the lip like that. Just kind of pound on this a little bit. And then I got a bearing tool that sits like that so it can pound evenly. Alright, you can see from the back side the weep holes right there. That's what it looks like from the front. So now we can get our oil seal in. Here it is right here. It's going to be facing down like that when you push that in. So I'm going to put a little bit of gasket maker on the outside and then pound that in until it's flush with the case right here. I want it flush with the case. Nothing more than that. Should just push right in pretty evenly. Alright, just double check everything is perfect in here. All the dots are still lined up, looking good. Oil pump looks good. Let's get the gasket on next. Brand new gasket going on. All the surfaces are cleaned off here. This piece goes on here. And this piece I greased up, but there's little ridges right there. See those little notches? That's going to face out. And that's going to bind to the little notches right there on the impeller. And then you've got like almost like a ceramic coating here. It's going to face in. Go out just like that. You just want the threads of the bolt coming past there. Right there. Alright, so I was just putting this cover back on, and I noticed that there's actually a hole right here in this little case half. And that is for the weep hole. So the weep hole is going through. That's supposed to not have a hole there. And that's supposed to go directly to the back side of that seal. Right now, it's just spraying oil out from here, because this is where the oil is, in this side of the case. So oil is just going past there and out that hole. So I think most of the oil was actually going through here, down into there, and out to there. That should not be happening. So we are going to JB weld this spot right here and block that off. Because that is not supposed to be like that. So we're going to prep that, JB weld it, and hopefully that takes care of our problem. I think somebody tried to tap this out to fit a fitting in there, and they went a little too far, and it broke through right there. So I think that was the main culprit as to why oil was getting behind there. Alright, mix up this JB weld here. Okay, so now, because that's a pretty big hole that we're going to be covering, see that? We took a straw, we're just going to place that right there so we can get that to seal properly. Otherwise it's going to sink down into there. We don't want that. Cover that whole thing there. And we can always grind some of it down too if it's sticking out too much. That looks pretty good. That should be good. Well, we're gonna let that drive for 24 hours, come back and see if that fixed our problem. I was hoping today this would be an easy fix, but it turned into a complete tear out of the engine, which I was not expecting. But yeah, it seems like every time I buy a cheap UTV, it's always in like the worst condition. You can never really get a good deal on a UTV for cheap. I always think I can, but then it's like it's always an engine tear out or a complete rebuild or just something really seriously wrong with them. So yeah, I haven't learned my lesson yet, but hopefully it made a good video and you guys learned something on it. I know I always do digging into these things. I was really hoping today we could get away with just replacing the seal on the water pump and then fixing that clutch issue. But yeah, it turned into a full engine tear out, which is fine. We'll get this thing fixed up and hopefully running and driving next video. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And until next time, we are out.